Hello, everybody. So, this evening I've been watching a lot of videos about maths and science on YouTube, trying to again sort of learn up to a better extent my things like calculus and trying to understand things like vectors and all this sort of thing. And the problem with maths and science education as it is at school in Britain is that, and I've been reflecting on this more, I didn't encounter an equation in my physics classes at school, and I went to a private school. So I went to a very good school, which is still, by the way, forced to follow the national curriculum. So they're still bound by whatever the national curriculum is. I didn't encounter any equations in physics until I was 15. And it was at this point where suddenly they introduce equations into physics. Like, oh, by the way, the whole thing's based on mathematics, and or the whole thing's underpinned by mathematics. And it's, I was robbed. I feel I was robbed of an education. Really, now the more that I reflect on it, the more that I realize now that what I've been spoon fed and given in physics classes was something much more equivalent to a sort of popular science explanation of most phenomena that occur in nature, or like most of natural phenomena. Like, we literally did not encounter a means of calculating the speed of an object until we were 15. And there were kids in our year who were filtered into the foundation tier of science, and they wouldn't have even learned as much as we did in the dual award tier. And I got A, B in my dual award in science, which I didn't even try for that. I put in no work at all for it. And if I tried hard enough, I could probably got into the separate sciences, where I suppose I would have learned a little bit more mathematics, but I suspect not nearly enough. And like, when it comes to the equation for figuring out an object's speed, that can be taught at primary school, and I don't understand why it isn't in the United Kingdom. I don't understand it. That is really, 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 really easy. And that's almost the problem with having to learn maths and science. Like, the more exposure you have to it, the more you realize that a lot of what it is, a lot of what it entails, is not at all hard. And that's actually the hard thing about it. You see an integral sign, or you see like d over dx or something like that, and you think, oh god, this is very arcane. This is weird and spooky and mysterious, and it has great beauty. It really does. Maths and science has enormous amounts of beauty within it. Or the mathematical understandings of science is a beautiful thing to have. But when it comes to understanding like the power rule in calculus, I almost felt cheated by it when I understood how easy it was. I was like, this, I should never have needed to encounter this in my early 20s. I should have encountered this when I was 7 years old. Why on earth not? It's so intuitive, so easy to understand, that we have to do better than this in maths and science education in the West, in Britain at least. Because it's like learning languages. Almost everyone leaves school unable to speak a foreign language in this country. And I suspect the exact same thing is true of mathematical education. I suspect most of us just filter out of the schools. Yeah, and we're so dumbfounded. Oh, we don't know why. School failed us. Education failed us. I was like, well, Can we speak French? Despite the fact we've been supposedly learning it for at least 5 years or more than that. No, we can't speak a fucking word of French. We can say bonjour in a bad accent. And maybe je m'appelle so-and-so. And maybe je vais au magasin avec Claudine. But, like, can we speak French properly? No, of course we can't. Can we take a derivative? No, we can't. Can we do logarithms? Can we compute integrals? Can we do any of this sort of stuff? We are being shafted by education. And, you know, and I went through private education, paid for education, at ostensibly the best schools, but they're forced to follow the national curriculum. And like us being educated in times of Labour government, when like we just want everyone to do well and get a good grade and feel good about themselves and having a good grade. So, big pud. Also, the education system is lacking any philosophy. You're right. Well, I mean, you can study philosophy and ethics. Do you mean like philosophy of the subject, or like is lacking direction? Please answer. I'll leave you to one side for a minute. But yeah, in some schools you can study philosophy and ethics, but we don't fucking need that. We need some more maths and science, and earlier, a lot earlier. I remember encountering here and there in primary school stuff that was a bit more advanced. It seemed like probability theory. I was like, well, I get this. Sort of like, I can put some work in and maybe do this. But then it's almost like when you hit secondary school, then you're taking a step back. Because then we start getting to multiplication, addition, and subtraction again. And then fractions. And it's almost like leading on easily. And then you get bored, obviously, because you're a kid. And then you're like, oh, fuck mathematics. It's bollocks. It's just rubbish. And then you don't encounter an equation in physics until you're 15, much less anywhere else in the sciences, obviously. No equations at all in biology and chemistry, none at all. Even though in the more advanced stages of those subjects, of course, they involve equations. So, none in geography. A little bit of statistics, I suppose, or statistical analysis or whatever, but not in the true sense of that term. And then you got like maths, which is like trying to load abstract maths onto you. And you get a tiny little bit of how it might apply. And all that's rather condescending. And you think like, and they say to you things like, well, if you want to like compute how much your mortgage is going to be over a certain amount of years and so on and so on. Like you're going to be a sort of ordinary person who like, I doubt physics professors actually have to deal with the realities of what their mortgage payments are going to be any more than the ordinary person is. They're probably not any better at calculating it. They probably just like walk dumbfounded into a bank and say, I want this house. I'm a like recently graduated postdoc. Do you reckon I'd be able to afford it? And they're like, yeah, probably. And get a mortgage. For fuck's sake. And like, because their brains are wired to doing well, more advanced calculations. But when I discovered that a lot of integral calculus, or there's a basic level with it, which is very easy to get, and it's gettable. I'm saying like you should be teaching that to people who are 5. Not to me at 25. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace, actually, because, yeah, my education got paid for. I got a scholarship. You know, I was sort of bright, but my parents had to pay for my education to some extent, or felt they needed to. So, and in spite of that even, and they just follow the national curriculum, and try to add more time into it and try to give you a bit of an edge that way, which doesn't really work, but sort of on average gives students a slight leg up. And they don't do anything different to normal schools. Sorry, philosophy as a subject compared to other European subjects, we're far behind unless the school does RE. My first year of maths degree I'm in my first year of a maths degree, and it's basically A levels again. Yeah, I totally agree with you. British universities they're robbing people blind. I couldn't stand staying at British universities. I really couldn't. I wouldn't say drop out of your course, definitely not do that. But like, really, to get ahead in maths, I suppose you're going to need to read heavily around your course. That's the only thing I could probably recommend. I wish I was doing a fucking maths degree, honestly. Really, what I wish I was doing is a physics degree. But I cannot believe it's so superficial. It's so lacking in depth. And where was I? Yeah, a lot of this stuff is not hard to grasp. It isn't hard to grasp. And it's almost held up as this big sort of carrot that we're all chasing. Through the basic mathematics, we're chasing the carrot of calculus or something like that. It's like, oh, you'd never be able to understand calculus unless you could understand advanced algebra or more advanced algebra and trigonometry and so on. But then, introduce calculus, you can sort of gain trigonometry by attrition, can't you? You say, oh, by the way, the trigonometric identities mean that this integrates to that and so on, which I now sort of get a bit, but I haven't really put in the legwork to understand how to actually do it myself yet. And by the way, I blame the subject itself, which is a terrible thing to do, instead of blaming the education system I've grown up in. If you see what I mean. £9,000 a year for British university education. It's a travesty. It really is. I don't even know how good it is at Oxford and Cambridge these days. I went to UEA as well. I went to University of East Anglia to study a foundation year in English, and that is daylight robbery for £9,000 a year. That's an atrocious course. And yeah, like most degree, like English courses or stuff like that, which is what I fell into because I felt it was my strength. In spite of the fact, by the way, they got A, B in science. But do you mean compared to other European countries, we are far behind unless your school does RE? And for my first university, actually, I went to a university in the Netherlands, where they charge £3,500 per year for tuition, and I got to study philosophy, literature. Sorry, not English literature, but world literature, politics, biology, history. That was worth the money. I don't know what the fuck we're doing here. £9,000 a year for monocultural education. It's a scam. I went to Utrecht University, one of the better universities in the Netherlands, one of the best universities in Europe. A couple of Nobel laureates in the faculty, all that good stuff, big red brick buildings, etc., etc. What are their entry requirements? They don't really have any in the Netherlands. Well, they sort of do a bit for where I went, which is like a liberal arts college on the campus. But you need to get A to C at A level. I'm at Royal Holloway, similar to the American system where you might be doing modules in unrelated subjects. I think you're probably quite lucky there. Because that is undoubtedly, I think, the best sort of education, really. Well, where you learn is like you gain as much breadth in knowledge as you can, and don't limit yourself to something like maths or science. But then again, like a broad-based maths and science degree, I suppose it's an incredibly valuable thing to have. But I'm talking about education at schools. And the reason why children hate school, the real reason for that is because it is condescending as fuck. Imagine being told as a 15-year-old, you've been doing all this shit to do with circuits in physics and so on, and being told the universe expands. Like, wonderful. That's fantastic. I sort of knew that from a TV show about a few years ago, but whatever. It's good to see that the education system's caught up with documentaries and so on. And it's like, well, didn't introduce the vital importance of mathematics in physics. But then we start when we're 15 on the equation to figure out speed of an object. And at the very end, by the way, of my GCSE course, guess what we're introduced to? F equals ma. And here you go. Here's the treat at the end. The glitter, like the glimmering beginnings of classical mechanics. The first equation of modern physics, if you like. I was robbed. That education wasn't worth anything. I could have got that education from TV and the internet. Anyway, I think it's rant over. Thank you, Big Pud, for your comments. You're very, very kind. See you soon, everyone. Bye, bye, bye.